Mercy Me is coming to Pittsburgh, the Together Again tour with Mercy Me, Crowder, and special guest Andrew Ripp, Thursday, October 5th. Bring your family and friends to the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh for Mercy Me, Crowder, and Andrew Ripp live in concert. 3 multiple award-winning artists on one stage for one night. Let your spirit soar, your heart sing, and your faith ignite. Mark your calendars for Thursday, October 5th. Get your tickets now at mercyme.org.
I believe that there's something special that happens when you recap and remember and focus on all that God has done for you and brought you through. I am always blown away at how faithful God is year after year.
It's exciting that the business boutique was made for you.
I know that I can make a difference in people's lives, and I want to do that.
Hearing a lot of what other people are going through is really healing in a sense and motivating as well.
I have the world in my hand, and I can do whatever I want to.
Learning from some of the top leaders who can make these dreams a reality is just so exciting.
It ignited a passion in me to know she can do that, we can do that too.
I'm so blessed to have heard the podcast that led me to this moment.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Business Boutique and Merry Christmas. I'm Christy, Wright, and today I just have a little bit of Christmas encouragement for you to enjoy this holiday. Now, I've got to tell you guys, this is my favorite time of the year. I love everything about the entire Christmas season. Of course, I love that it reminds us of the hope that we have because of the birth of Jesus, but I also love all of the traditions and special times that you get to have during the Christmas season. I love to drink hot chocolate with my boys in front of the fireplace. I love to go look at Christmas lights. I love to sing carols. We even bring Santa to our house once a year for all of our friends and all of their kids to come and have cookies with Santa and read stories and get to hang out with him and take pictures. Y'all, this season is just magical. I feel like it brings out the kid in all of us. Now, there's one tradition in particular that I love about this season. I'll tell you, this is specific to my family, but I want to spend a few moments sharing it with you because it's something that I think that you'll love as well. My mom actually encouraged me to do this a million years ago, before I was married, before kids, before life got so busy. But because I started then, I've maintained it now. My mom told me that years ago, even before she had me, she had her own tradition at Christmas that every year, she would sit down and write a letter. Now, this letter was just for her. She didn't mail it to anyone. She didn't write it to anyone. The whole purpose of this letter was really just to recap the year. My mom wasn't a big journaler. She didn't spend a lot of time constantly reflecting on her life, but once a year, she would sit down and write about that year. So right around Christmas time, when she's packing up her ornaments after the season was over, she would write about all the major things that had happened that year. The highs, the lows, and everything in between. She would then fold up that letter, pack it up with her ornaments, and put it away in the attic, not to be seen again until the next year. And then the next year, when she would open up all her Christmas decorations out of the attic to decorate for the oncoming season, she would open up that letter and read it for the first time. She said it was amazing to see how much had transpired in just a single year. Well, I love this idea so much that I started it in 2006. Now, I'll tell you, it wasn't very sophisticated. I just sat down with a couple pieces of printer paper and started writing down all of my thoughts. Most of them rambled, but there was some highlights. There were some things that it's really funny to go back and read and see where my mind and my heart was at the time. For example, when I look at my letter from 2006 that is on these scratchy pieces of printer paper, there's a line in there that says, "Dear God, please let me go on at least one date next year." Well, bless my heart. Apparently that was a tough year in the love department. But you know what's so amazing is year after year, as I've written these letters and then faithfully put them away and then open them the next year, I am always blown away at not only how much can happen in one single year of your life, but also just how faithful God is year after year. I start every letter by talking about what happened that year, and I end every letter by talking about my prayers and dreams and hopes for the next year. And y'all, this is like a storybook of my life. Every single year when I read the letter from the year before, I am living in the fulfillment of God's promises that I prayed and forgot about, of course, the year before. I remember in December of 2014, sitting on my couch, reading my Christmas letter from the year before. And as I read my handwritten words on the page, praying that Matt and I could start a family. And I'm holding that letter over a giant belly with my son, Carter, who was due the very next month. Now, of course, every year isn't like this. I remember in 2017 reading my letter from 2016, and those words on the page were prayers that Matt's grandfather would be doing better, that his grandmother would be doing better, and that Jackson, our dog of 11 and a half years, would be doing better. And all three of those loved ones passed away in that year. Tears streamed. That was hard. I will tell you, in the last 10 years of my life, reading the letter from 2016 was the hardest letter I've ever read. It was a mixture of emotions, but even in the despair, even in the grief, even in the disappointment, even when it seemed like God didn't fulfill that promise or answer that prayer, you still see God's faithfulness. Because the way that every single one of those things occurred, and of course, we have the hope in heaven and the hope in eternity in Jesus. But in addition to that, even how all of those things happened, you just see God's faithfulness. You see God's provision. You see that God carried us through, and you felt his peace through all of it. So even though it was hard to read, it was still one of those moments where you're getting to experience God. You're not experiencing him on the mountaintop, but you know what? He's with you in the valley as well. And that was a good reminder of that. But you know what's amazing is year after year, we have this log, this journey of not only what we've been through, the things we want to remember, the hard times, the good times, the crazy times, but we have this journey of God's faithfulness. Now, writing our letters looks a little different this year because now Matt writes them with me. Reluctantly, I would like to point out, okay, I have injected this tradition into our marriage as I brought it from being a single person, and now we do it as a family. But here's how we do it. Every single Christmas, I'll sit down, and now we have a notebook, and I'll write my Christmas letter for the year. And then I give the notebook to Matt, and Matt writes his Christmas letter for the year. We write them separately. We don't read them. So then the next year, we sit down, and I read my letter aloud to Matt, and Matt reads his letter aloud to me. These are both letters that we have not seen or heard since the year before, since we didn't read them before we packed them up. Now, I would like to point out that my letters are typically around 10 pages. Matt's are usually around 10 words. Let me just read you a little excerpt from Matt Wright's letter from 2017. Here's how it starts. As I sit down to write this, Christy is reciting all of the rules regarding the Christmas letter. They are numerous and overbearing. I'm telling y'all, this man is a mess. There was another year that he wrote giant block letters on one page that said, Christy says the letters need to be more than one page, so here's my second page. So, at least you know my husband has a sense of humor. But you know what, y'all? What's so amazing is this is something that shows us how God carries us through. He carries us through the good times and the bad times, and he has dreams for us. He has promises for us that are truly, just like the Bible says, more than we could ever ask or imagine. And you know, it's amazing too to read at the end of the year how much can change in one year. Not just how much can change in your life, but how much can change in your mind. Let me give you an example. In 2017, I wrote in all caps with 3 exclamation points, done with kids, all caps. You could tell that had been a hard year in mom's life of adjusting from 1 to 2 children that were 18 months apart while also launching a book. I really thought in those first few months and that first year of having 2 kids that I was done, all caps, 3 exclamation points done. And now I'm sitting here with 3 kids and could not feel more blessed. God can show you that you want things you didn't know you wanted, that you're dreaming of things you didn't know you dreamed. You know, I'd always wanted a big family. Growing up an only child, I always thought, I want 3 or 4 or 5 kids. Then I started having kids and realized that they are hard and exhausting and expensive. But what's funny is after having 2, I thought for sure we were done. That was it. That's all I could handle. But in that year, since writing those all caps words, done with kids, God reminded me God reminded me of my heart's desire from as far back as I could remember of wanting a big family. Now, that may seem silly to you. 3 may not seem big to you, but to me, after being an only child, 3 was a big family. And in that year, God stirred that desire up again. He reminded me of that desire and that dream. And through months of going on this journey with God and my husband, we decided to add to our family. And now we not only have 2 adorable little blonde boys in Carter and Conley, we also have a precious daughter, Mary Grace Wright. Something I could have never even seen coming when I was so tired and so sure I was done. But isn't it wonderful that God knows what you need and even what you want more than you do? It's funny to go back and read that now as one example of the many examples where I was so sure of something in my life at the time. And I'm sitting there reading my words of how confident I was in what I wanted or what was so or what my plans or dreams were. And then God changes not just my mind, but He changes my heart. It's amazing how over time, year after year, and as you get older and wiser, you just have some perspective. But man, isn't it awesome to capture where your head was at the time? When I look back on some of my prayers from 2006, 2008, 2012, I realized just how small my dreams were. I wanted to get promoted within the YMCA, or I wanted to, start a blog one year. They were such small, tiny, adorable dreams. And now seeing what God is doing, what God is bringing to fruition years later, really is more than I could have ever dreamed of. This is something that I'll tell you has been one of my favorite traditions of the entire Christmas season. And I'll tell you, I'm not great at journaling. I'm not great at sitting down on a regular basis, writing down my thoughts and feelings and all of that stuff. But once a year I can do this. Once a year, I can get a notebook or a piece of paper and I can sit down and spend 20 minutes remembering and recapping and writing down my year. I don't know if this is something that you want to do in your family, but I hope you do. I will tell you that I treasure these letters. My husband treasures these letters. And you know what? I believe that there's something special that happens when you recap and remember and focus on all that God has done for you and brought you through. So this year, before you store up all your Christmas decorations and put them away in the attic, I want to encourage you to sit down with your family, pass out some papers and pens or pencils or napkins or whatever, grab some hot chocolate, and sit down with your family and pour out your heart to God. Write down your year. Write down your feelings, your experiences, your highs, your lows, everything in between, and anything you want to remember, and then write down your prayers for the next year. What do you hope next year holds for you? What do you hope will be different next year? What do you hope God shows up and blows your mind in next year? Write it down, and then pack it up, put it away, and I think you will be amazed next year when you sit down and open those letters to see all that God has done. All right, y'all, that's it for this week, and I hope you have an amazing Christmas. Thanks so much for hanging out with me as always, and for more encouragement on how to make money doing what you love, visit businessboutique.com. Hey, y'all, if you enjoy the Business Boutique podcast, I want to tell you about the Dave Ramsey Show podcast, available now on the Ramsey Network.
If you're looking for boring financial talk, you're in the wrong place. This is not your mother's 401k meeting. This is life on the radio, and it's just downright entertaining. That's why there's about 14 million of you out there today. Thanks for hanging out with us, America. We're glad you're there.
To hear full episodes, search for Dave Ramsey wherever you listen to podcasts, or go to daveramsey.com.
Mercy Me is coming to Pittsburgh. The Together Again tour with Mercy Me, Crowder, and special guest Andrew Rip, Thursday, October 5th. Bring your family and friends to the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh for Mercy Me, Crowder, and Andrew Rip live in concert. 3 multiple award-winning artists on one stage for one night. Let your spirit soar, your heart sing, and your faith ignite. Mark your calendars for Thursday, October 5th. Get your tickets now at mercyme.org.